Hello and welcome to About the Game, your sports manual. My name is Morden Sinkala. Today, we want to understand the sport of golf, how it is played and all the rules associated with it. So today, I'm at Bonanza Golf Club in Lusaka where Charles Gerard will run us through how the sport is played. But first of all, let's understand the history of the sport. Golf is a club and ball sport in which players use various clubs to hit balls into a series of holes on a course in as few strokes as possible. The modern sport of golf was devised in 15th century in Scotland, but the game's ancient origins are unclear and debatable. Some historians trace the sport back to the Roman game of paganica, in which participants used a bent stick to hit a stuffed leather ball. Others cite Chui Wan, a Chinese game played between the 8th and 14th centuries, as the precursor. Another early game that resembled modern golf was known as Kambuka in England and Chamblot in France. The Persian game Choukan is another possible ancient origin, although it is more like polo. Additionally, Koven, a game involving a ball and curved bats, was played annually in Netherlands beginning in 1297. To many golfers, the Old Course at St Andrews in Scotland, a links course dating as far back as 1574, is considered to be a site of pilgrimage. In 1764, the standard 18-hole golf course was created at St Andrews when members modified the course from 22 to 18 holes. Golf is documented as being played at Masobra Links, East Lothian, Scotland, as early as 2nd March 1672, which is certified as the oldest golf course in the world by Guinness World Records. The world's oldest golf tournament in existence and golf's first major is the Open Championship, which was played on 17th October 1860 at Prestwick Golf Club in Ayrshire, Scotland, with Scottish golfers winning the earliest majors. Other major championships in men's professional golf are the Masters, the US Open, and the PGA. Charles, thank you for hosting us. As I said earlier on, we want to understand how the game of golf is played, and you are the expert. Run us through how the game is played.
Yeah, so firstly, golf is quite a complex sport. But to put it in its simplest terms, basically you're obviously trying to get the ball from A to B in the fewest amount of shots. On the golf course, there will be different holes. There's 18 holes on a golf course, and they have different what we call pars. So we have a par 3, a par 4, and a par 5. On a par 3, your objective is to get the ball in the hole for 3 shots. On a par 4, it would be 4, and obviously on a par 5, it would be in 5 shots. And that sounds simple, but I can promise you that it's not. So what you see on TV with the professionals, they make it look really, really easy. But with a little bit of guidance, it can be done. And in golf, you have something that's also called a handicap. And that is to aid amateur golfers. Basically, what will happen is that, let's say that you had 6 shots in a hole. If you have a handicap on certain holes, you can take shots off. So it's one of the unique sports where you can actually compete with players of a higher or a better level than you, because the handicap levels the playing fields.
Okay. So what does one need to compete? For instance, in football, you need boots, you need jerseys, and so forth.
Sure. So in golf, you've got a set of clubs. The maximum amount of clubs that you can have is 14. And obviously you need a golf ball. And that's about it. For beginners, when you're starting out, you don't need a full set of 14. There are beginner sets where you probably only need about 10 clubs to start. But the purpose of the clubs is to hit the shots different distances, which is why there's a maximum of 14 clubs. Like I say, for beginners to get started, you probably only need about 10.
Okay. So these 14 clubs you mentioned, so you use different clubs at different points?
Correct. So when you start the hole, majority of the time you would use a club called a driver. That's the longest club in the bag. It's also the lightest and probably the most fun to hit because it goes the furthest distance. So that is the first shot that you use most of the time would be the driver. And as you get closer to the green, the clubs get shorter and shorter as well. So then it becomes more about control. And I think that's one of the nice things about golf is that you've got so many different varieties of shots that you can hit.
So, is it a team sport or an individual sport?
It's a good question. So majority of the time when you watch it on TV, it is an individual sport. But there are events such as the Ryder Cup. You'll have a team of golfers coming together with their scores combined, competing against each other. So it can be individual or team.
Let's come to scoring now. So you said there are 18 holes. How do you start and how do you end?
Scoring is also quite complex. So those par 3s, par 4s and par 5s, when you add all those pars together over the 18 holes, they will add up to 72. And that's what we call level par. Now, very, very good golfers will be able to be level par or under par. For the majority of us, it will always be over par. Okay, so if you're thinking about getting into the game, don't set the expectations too high. Certainly when you watch it on TV, like I say, it looks really easy, and that's why they get paid the way they do, is because they're exceptionally talented, and it's it's a really, really tough sport to make it in as a pro. As beginners and amateurs, and maybe those that want to use golf as a leverage to network in terms of business, I would highly recommend getting into the game and just starting off slowly. We do offer beginner programs as well, which are nice and fun. And I think that's also one of the most important things, is that you come out here and enjoy the leisure time. Yes, it's a game and we want to do very well, but you've got to enjoy the game. Otherwise, you won't enjoy it at all.
Okay. So there are terms that would confuse people who are, for instance, watching on TV. There's a birdie, there's an eagle, and all those scores, albatross. So, are you able to break down each one of them?
Well, I like the way you started, because those are all good things. The bad things are some of the other terms, but let's run through them. So birdie would be if you have one better than par. So let's pretend we were playing a par 4 where we try and get the ball into the hole for 4 shots. Birdie would be one better, which is 3, which is great. An eagle would be 2 better than par, which means you've got the ball into the hole for 2 shots on a par 4. And an albatross, which is very, very, very rare, is if you get a hole-in-one on a par 4. So that would be in the hole for 3 shots less than par. On the other end of the scoring is the ugly side, which is bogey. So if you're 1 worse than par, that would be a bogey. 2 worse would be double bogey. 3 worse would be triple bogey. And obviously it just continues to go on like that.
All right. And also elaborate more on the hole-in-one.
So hole-in-one is a par 3, you would hit it in the hole for 1 shot, or it is possible to do it on a par 4 as well. So the tradition in golf, if you get a hole-in-one, is to buy everyone in the bar a round of drinks. So it can be quite expensive.
All right. So is there a particular way that a golfer is supposed to hold the club, or maybe the way they're supposed to walk? What are some of the rules that are associated with the sport?
So that wouldn't be too much of a rule, the way that you grip the club. That's more of a technique. Rules and etiquette is, again, it's fairly complex, but we have a very, like I mentioned, that beginner course that shows you everything that you need to do. It's a very traditional sport in some aspects, and yes, some of those etiquettes need to be maintained, but at another level, in terms of how we introduce people into the game, we have fairly relaxed setup here at Bonanza. So if you were going to go and hit balls at the driving range, everyone's welcome. In terms of dress code, we're very relaxed in the driving range as well. So if you're someone that's looking to get into the game and start, I would highly recommend coming to Bonanza. And we also, in terms of teaching, we've got a beginner program that will just get you on the right step.
Okay. I know the issues of no noise making. Well, for instance, in other sports, cheering, that's what is advocated for. Why is that so?
Yeah, so in golf, and this forms part of the rules as well, rule 1 is etiquette and playing the game. Generally, you would keep very quiet if someone was playing. You also wouldn't move around because it's a little bit distracting. So when you join Bonanza as well, you'd get a rules book. In that rules book, you will find Rule 1A, and that will give you all the rules that you need. I won't go through all of them, but let's just say that you were a beginner and you wanted to come and watch some golf. The general rule would be to keep quiet when someone's hitting, not to move around them when someone's hitting, and just maintain a little bit of a distance so that you're not distracting anyone.
Is there a recommended dress code?
Certainly, when you get onto the golf course, yes. You need to have a collared shirt. Shirt should always be tucked in. And we do have a dress code that needs to be adhered to once you step onto the first tee. Like I say, when you on the practice area or on the driving range, our dress code is fairly relaxed. We want to encourage people to use the facility, and we don't expect you to spend thousands of kwacha on golf shoes and golf-specific clothing before getting into the game. So if you are thinking about getting into the game, I would encourage you to come and visit us.
So the cap is also a must.
Certainly, in terms of sun protection, it's a must. We're actually holding a Skin Cancer Awareness Golf Day on the 13th of November. The sun is particularly harsh in Zambia, so cap is very, very important, and you can also make your fashion statement. So we've got a variety of caps you can choose from, and yeah, definitely need to wear a hat when you're out there.
Okay. I've also seen some golfers wearing a glove and also another one tucked in the pocket. Is that also a must?
It's a preference. So some people will use a glove. Most of the time it's only used on the left hand if you're a right-hander. Some people wear two gloves, but that's entirely up to the golfer. I would recommend a glove on the left hand though.
In terms of scores, how you record, in other sports we've seen there's a referee who records everything. Is there a referee in golf?
No, so what you would have is, let's say that me and you were having a game of golf. We'd both have our scorecards. I would write my name on the top, you would write your name on the top of your one, and then we would swap cards. So I would mark your card, and then you would mark my card. At the end of it, we would have to put our signatures on the bottom just to verify that the scores are correct.
Okay, so there's no cheating.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So some would say golf is a sport for the elite. For an ordinary person, maybe they can't afford to play. Is that a correct statement?
It's certainly not a cheap sport. If you look around us, to maintain this there's quite a cost associated to that. And in order to maintain this level, there's certain green fees that need to be applied. So a green fee is a fee that you would pay in order to play 18 or 9 holes. And then obviously from an equipment point of view, there are some a variety of different equipment that you can use. Entry level for a full set, you might be paying for a brand new set between 7,000 and 8,000 kwacha. And if you wanted to really use some professional equipment, you could move up into the 50, 60,000 kwacha rate. So it is an expensive sport. Like I say though, we try and, if you are interested into getting into the game of golf, through our programs, which is a 5-week program, we eliminate that initial cost. When you join the program, there's no need to buy equipment. Like I say, the driving range, there's no specific dress code, so you can come there in casual clothing. The cost to you is minimal. After the 5 weeks, you can make the decision whether you'd like to dive in and enjoy the game of golf, because it is quite an investment, and you don't want to make that kind of investment without knowing if you want to get into the game or not.
Okay. So run us through the golf courses. Are they all the same worldwide, or maybe they vary from one place to the other?
Sure. So golf courses will vary in a very big way all around the world. In terms of conditioning, it just comes down to what level, what standard each golf course is looking to prepare their golf course. Also in terms of undulation, you might find one golf course that's fairly flat, and then you might go to another golf course which is fairly undulating. So they all present different challenges, they all have different difficulty levels, and those difficulty levels are actually measured by a rating. So before you play that golf course, you'll have a feel of how difficult it is.
So I can see that some golf courses have also a pool of water. And if you are playing and then a golf ball drops into the pool of water, what happens?
Firstly, you cry because you've lost a golf ball. Okay. Secondly, this is an area that's actually called a penalty area. So you can see that there's red stakes over here, and it doesn't necessarily have to be water. As long as there are red stakes, you're now into a penalty zone or a penalty area. So let's just pretend that we hit our ball into this water or into this penalty area. You would draw a line between this marker and that marker, and you would then, from the point that the ball crossed there, you would take 2 club links and then mark that point with a T, and you'd also have a T from that point where I've just illustrated now. Then you would drop from knee height. Okay, you can't drop up here and you can't drop from there. You drop from knee height and that ball is now in play. You'd have to add a 1-stroke penalty, but now you can continue playing.
Whether it's a pool of water or the ball hangs in the tree or something like that.
Ball hanging in the tree would be a little bit of a different scenario. That would be something that we call an unplayable lie. The same would apply, let's just say that if we hit it into a big mound of thick grass, you might find your ball but actually not be able to swing. That's called an unplayable lie. And there's a different penalty procedure when you do that. It is still 1-stroke penalty, but you would be able to drop and take a penalty stroke for one shot.
Okay. Has it happened before where you hit the ball and you can't just find it? It goes missing?
Yes, so that's called a lost ball. And again, there's various penalties or options for that. Some golf courses will have something called a local, or all golf courses will have something called local rules. Local rules are rules that apply to different golf courses based on the scenarios or based on what their tournament committee have decided in certain cases. But in a lost ball situation, more often than not, what you would do is apply stroke and distance, which basically means hit the shot again and add a 1-stroke penalty.
Now again, these balls look like the same. Are there different balls for each competition, or they're the same?
So again, when it comes to the equipment, it's more of a preference for each player, and you will have very different types of balls depending whether you're a professional golfer or a beginner. Obviously, the price range also varies, so your beginner golf ball will be a lot more affordable than your pro ball. And when it comes to the advances in technology, I would say in the last 10 years, the technology in the ball has been probably the most significant change, which has allowed players to hit the ball further and, certainly get more consistency as well.
Okay. So how do you identify your ball from the other, since you move in groups?
So usually, depending on not depend. There's so many different variations of balls, but quite often what you'll find is that people would be playing the same ball. Here I've got a Titleist 4. What you would need to do is put your own mark on this ball. So you take a permanent marker, and you can get a little bit creative if you want. Some people like to put 4-leaf clovers, some people like to put their initials. Tiger Woods has his name printed onto the ball, so it's completely up to you how you mark your ball. But you should, on the first tee, identify your ball to your marker so that they know that that is your mark on your ball.
So the keywords to mark in golf: bogey, birdie, eagle, and albatross. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Modern Sinkar. Until next week at the same time, goodbye.